Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea from Game Informer, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. A new Super Mario Bros. Game is out today, so I bet you can guess what our main segment is going to be all about. That's right, we will be reviewing Super Mario Bros. Wonder on this episode, but before that, we have some news and a hands-on preview that I want to talk about. And joining me for today's show is Game Informer's own Wesley LeBlanc. Wes, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm tired, but I've drank a lot of coffee, so we're on the up, and I'm excited to chat about this Mario game that you have played and 100% that I have not even touched yet.
Yes, it is one of the most anticipated games of the year, certainly for Nintendo fans, right? Like it's probably like Tears of the Kingdom 1A, Mario Wonder 1B. Like that's how anticipated this 2D Mario return is. And little spoiler alert, it was worth the wait. But we're going to talk about that more on the main segment in the middle of the show. But we got some news, Wes, and I know you've been covering this beat quite a bit. The biggest news of the last couple of weeks, the $69 billion acquisition of Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard King officially gone through. Microsoft now owns a ton of Activision franchises, IPs, everything from Call of Duty, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Crash Bandicoot, which started as a PlayStation mascot, is now somehow an Xbox mascot.
But it's okay because PlayStation has Bungie, who made the Halo game, so they traded and everything's good.
Well, they don't anymore, right?
Well, they don't they don't get Destiny, but PlayStation.
Well, no, I thought Bungie was independent now. I thought they.
No.
No, they were independent from Activision,
yes,
right? And then PlayStation swooped in and bought them. My mistake. I was crossing some wires.
Bungie did, as part of the deal, ask to be independent, basically. So
gotcha.
PlayStation's just getting that money and helping Bungie, but Bungie wants to do their own thing still.
It is very weird when you think about like this last generation started with Insomniac making a game for Xbox One in Sunset Overdrive. Now they're making the biggest game of this holiday season in Spider-Man 2 exclusively for PlayStation. They're owned by PlayStation now. Like you mentioned, Bungie is now owned by PlayStation, who made the most iconic Xbox franchise of all time. And now Crash Bandicoot, the quintessential PlayStation mascot from the PS1 days, now an Xbox franchise. Very, very weird. But I'm learning now that I better not even freaking joke about them putting Spider-Man 2 from 2004 on Game Pass on Twitter, because you get a lot of freaking weirdos coming into your mentions saying, "Oh, actually, this is how licensing." I don't care. It's a joke, you idiots.
Yes, not to mention like Xbox and Microsoft spent $69 billion on Activision Blizzard. They have the money to do whatever rights, who has the rights in the like they have the money to make it happen. That much is clear.
I was at wit's end last night with some of the people sliding into my mentions, telling me that I was coping because Spider-Man 2, it's like I shared them the screenshot of the picture I took of my PlayStation actually playing Spider-Man 2 right now. Yeah. And I'm like, this is why I made this joke, because I am currently playing Insomniac Spider-Man 2, which, by the way, amazing game. Definitely worth playing that one. One of my favorite games of the year. But this is a Nintendo podcast, Wes. That's why we're going over to the Nintendo side of this thing. The aforementioned news of Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard King, that comes with it a binding contract that Nintendo announced, feels like a year ago at this point, maybe even more. I don't know when that came out, but they entered like a several year binding deal with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms. And we have a new quote from Phil Spencer talking about this now that the acquisition has been finalized. Here's his quote. "For Call of Duty players on PlayStation and in the future on Nintendo, I want you to feel 100% part of the community. I don't want you to feel like there's content you're missing out, there's skins you're missing out, there's timing that you're missing out on. That's not the goal. The goal is 100% parity across all platforms as much as we can for launch and content. I say as much as we can on parity because clearly some platforms have resolution and frame rate differences just based on performance. But there's nothing else. We have no goal of somehow trying to use Call of Duty to get you to buy an Xbox console. So I want the Call of Duty Nation to feel supported across all platforms. We've been on the other side of some of those skins and times. Even this beta wasn't on Xbox the first week. I don't think that helps the community. I don't think that helps the game. If you're a Nintendo player, I want you to feel like 100% part of the Call of Duty nation. So you've done a lot of reportage on this topic, Wes. How do you see this acquisition actually affecting Nintendo and Nintendo players?
So I think, I mean, I as far as the Switch goes, I don't think the Switch is going to be affected or even mentioned at all with any of this because we're not really going to see anything come of this acquisition till next year. Um, it's closed, but now they have to go through all the transfer of money, and Phil Spencer has to go visit all these studios, see what's going on. Like it's going to be a while before we hear any significant news, and they already said don't expect any Activision Blizzard games on Game Pass till next year anyway. So if that's not happening, then you're definitely not getting any Nintendo involvement anytime soon. So what I think is going to happen is the Switch will be basically ignored as far as Call of Duty and new Activision Blizzard games go. And what Phil Spencer is talking about here is probably the Switch successor, which I don't think he would necessarily know what it is, but I mean, Activision and Blizzard might know what that Switch successor is. We don't. I mean,
I mean,
reports
that's what the
came out.
report says, right? That
Yeah,
like
exactly
they
that.
got the demo at Gamescom.
Yeah, Gamescom. So like now Phil Spencer owns that company, so there's a good chance he has heard about this Switch successor and is like, okay, if it's as strong as like a PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, like reports indicate, then we can definitely get Call of Duty running on that. And I think that's where Nintendo's involvement is going to be. But like Phil Spencer said, and nobody's expecting this, the Switch successor is not going to be as strong as a PS5 and Xbox Series X. Like, I'd love to be surprised, but I'm not counting. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's where that parity mention comes in. Is it's just not going to be the same experience.
And we've also seen a strong partnership between Xbox and Nintendo in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cuphead first came outside of the Xbox ecosystem, I believe, arriving on Switch, right? And then Ori and the Blind
Mm-hmm.
Forest, the Ori games are on Switch.
Minecraft was they did like that weird, I forget what it was, God, it was years ago, but they had that like image and it was like Nintendo and the Xbox logo next to each other with Minecraft, and it was interesting to see.
I mean, yeah, and then, like there's parts of Xbox Live features that were over on Nintendo for a while. Some of those games have achievements, like some of the
Yeah.
Xbox games that came over to Switch. That's wild. I would honestly be so shocked, and I've said this before, but I would be so shocked if we don't have Xbox Cloud gaming on Switch at some point. Or not Switch, but whatever the next Nintendo console. I thought it was going to be Switch for the longest time. The fact that it hasn't happened yet tells me it's not going to be Switch because all the signs are pointing towards next year, probably near the end, being when we get our next Nintendo console. And I think it would be weird if they were like, "Hey, it's coming to Switch." Like at this point, it would be like, "Okay, well, I hope I hope the next system is backward compatible with all your software because
Yeah.
that's what I would want." But yeah, like that would be a huge step in the direction of Microsoft making it so that like they are really the platform agnostic platform holder, which is very weird to think about because like, they have skin in the game. They want to sell as many Xbox consoles as possible, but they've also been like, exclusives are not necessarily the thing that interests them as much as just like getting more people gaming, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that Phil Spencer, obviously he's an executive, so he has reason to put on that friendly face, that political kind of visage, right? Where
Yeah.
he's gonna play the politician, but I do feel that he leans into it more than any other president or head of a platform holder, in that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Mm-hmm.
And like if there are more gamers, that's not just a win for the games industry as a whole, that is a win for all the individual companies as well.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
also like
that's a big thing of it.
he is, like you mentioned, yeah, he's really good at like feeling like a, like one of us, just a gamer who cares about games. But then he's also, Microsoft's head of gaming and Xbox's boss. Like he's the top dog. So he's not one of us. He is a businessman that has to make shareholders happy and stuff, but he does a good job of walking that balance. I do think that throughout all this, and I think Microsoft and Xbox's overall goal is to be the first to tap into what will be the largest market of games one day, which is probably our phones. And we see that with cloud gaming, and it's getting better and better every month. Like I consistently am surprised by how well cloud gaming works with like a backbone controller and stuff. And I think if Xbox is the first to tap into that, you know, whoever, you want to be the first to tap into that and to do it well and win, you know, potentially hundreds of millions of people over that want to play games on their phones. So I think ultimately that's why Xbox is not as exclusive driven as Nintendo and PlayStation, because they have their eyes set on something much larger and less console dependent.
Yeah, I mean that's entirely possible. I mean the phone market is a tricky nut to crack, as
Yeah.
Nintendo has found out, right? Like they put out Mario Run, they put out Mitomo. I feel like their most successful one has been Mario Kart Tour.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Like that's
so.
the one that's run the longest. I mean, obviously Super Mario Run was a huge success when it came out, and then like people played it and they were like, "Oh, that was fine."
Hmm.
And then
But I
like
think
that was it.
throughout all those Nintendo releases, like it still felt like, well, these are mobile games. These aren't, you know, the real thing. And I think Microsoft is really trying to get away from that. Like they're not interested in releasing mobile versions of Halo Infinite. They're interested in giving you the capability to play Halo Infinite on your phone, which I think could be an important and key differentiator between the two. Because I mean, Nintendo's done like with mobile, right? They kind of, I don't know if they
And they're still
officially
doing
gave up
updates
on
for
it, but
Mario Tour, but yeah, Mario
yeah,
Kart Tour. But yeah, they've really pumped the brakes. For a while there, it was like multiple games a year.
yeah, Fire Emblem, Doctor Mario, yeah, Mario Run, and all those other
And
ones. Yeah,
before people like jump on us about oh, what do you mean Mario Kart Tour was the most successful one? What about Pokemon Go? Nintendo wasn't really involved with that.
yeah,
That was Niantic and the Pokemon Company more so. I think Nintendo got like kind of like caught in the blast radius in a good way, but like they were not necessarily involved with that project.
yeah. And even Niantic beyond Pokemon Go has struggled to
Hmm.
find a. I mean, they haven't found a win as big as Pokemon Go. I know people like Pikmin. I know the Monster Hunter one that came out's good. I think there was a Harry Potter one. Like, it's yeah, Pokemon Go is the clear winner, and I don't think they're going to tap into that in a different way.
It's got to be a different approach. I mean, Monster Hunter, from what I played, was a very interesting evolution of like the augmented reality map based gameplay that they really put on the map with Pokemon Go, and then Ingress before that. But you know, I think that there's got to be some new evolution that they really need to crack into. But I mean, that's everybody's looking for like the next big thing in mobile, which is
Yeah,
what makes it so difficult, because everybody is chasing the same thing, and in doing so, it's kind of flooding the market of like,
yeah,
oh, like Mortal Kombat Onslaught just came out, and they were like, all right, it's a hero collection RPG, and I'm like, all right, well, that immediately like appeals to me as somebody who plays Marvel Strike Force a lot, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll like this. And then like I sat in on a demo for it, and it's out now, by the way, on iOS and Android, but I was like, I don't know if I need to play this one. Like it looks fine, but
yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily something that I need to invest a bunch of time into, like I have Marvel Strike Force.
Yeah. And like once you have one already, like it's hard to get away from, you've put probably a lot of time and money into it, and it's tough. That makes it even tougher to break away from Marvel Strike Force to check out a new game that you're not even sure if you're going to like or not.
Now I have two. I have Marvel Snap as well, because that game
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah, Marvel Snap is awesome. 1 year old now.
Yeah, happy
Just this week.
anniversary. Put it
Yeah,
on Switch. That'd be fun.
that would.
All right. Well, we have a another big news story, but this is kind of from the Nintendo side, but also third party. It's the announcement of the Analog 3D.
Ah,
Now,
yes.
this is from the company that did that super popular Analog Pocket. They also have ones for the NES, SNES, and Sega Genesis. Basically, if you haven't heard of Analog, they do like these super high end, modernized, feature rich consoles that play your old cartridges. And you know, the Analog Pocket did Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. I think Game Gear is included in that. I know that there's
Yeah,
some
there's like an add-on.
adapters. There's
Hmm.
adapters you have to buy for a bunch of the other, like Neo Geo Pocket. I think you can buy adapters for. So really, the whole concept is you take your old cartridges and you can use them in these systems, and they look and play better than ever because it does like native 4K, it does like HDMI output and everything like that. Works with a lot of Bluetooth controllers, and that's basically what the Analog 3D is, but for N64, which is amazing. And they have like a quote that was like, Nintendo couldn't even do the N64 this well if they tried today. Like they're feeling good about this one. We haven't seen what
Yeah.
the actual system looks like. Like all the images are like either super dark and like casted in shadows, or obscured and like only like one little corner of the console. But if it's anything like their other stuff, it's gonna look fantastic on your shelf.
Yeah, this one's interesting too because the little teaser image of the console, like the Pocket, might as well just be a Game Boy Advance, but like very nice and special in 2023. But this 3D does not, at least in the teaser, appear to look like a Nintendo 64 in any way. It's way taller and more like angular and like circular. I don't know. It looks. I'm very interested to see what it looks like because yeah, like you mentioned, they do put out really good products.
Yeah, and I've never gotten one because I thought about getting the Analog Pocket, but I've talked about it before. I'm not the biggest handheld guy, but there are still so many Game Boy games that I have,
Yeah,
and I don't have my GameCube hooked up, so I can't do like the Game Boy player. So like really my only option, I have my old school. I just like kind of did like a very very minor restoration project on my old school Game Boy Color that like I got for Christmas in like 1998, and it's fun to like turn that on and play Tetris and everything, but it's so hard to go back without like the backlighting and like
yeah.
tiny little screen and all that stuff. So like my best option right now is playing it on the Switch. So I thought about like, all right, maybe I should get like an Analog Pocket, but they're so hard to get. And
Like
then on top of that, they're
impossible.
very
Yeah,
expensive too. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like the N64 one. I have a working N64, and then of course I have the original or the N64 controller for the Switch that plays amazingly on the Switch Online. So I'm like, how much do I really need this? I do have a lot of N64 cartridges, so maybe it would be worth it. But so it does 4K output, uh, Bluetooth connectivity for a bunch of different controllers, but you're definitely going to want to just use an N64 style controller, which is why there's 4 original style controller ports as well. So you can plug in 4 N64 controllers, which is great. Wi-Fi, I'm assuming for like firmware updates and everything like
Hmm.
that. I'm doubting this will have kind of like the online capabilities that Switch Online has, but who knows? They haven't really released a ton of details. They haven't even told us when it's coming out, aside from sometime in 2024, which
Yeah.
means you're probably not getting yours until 2026 because that's
No,
just
yeah, that's
how
how it
a lot of their
goes.
releases work.
And you
So
probably still won't get one because unless you're able to check out within 2 seconds, then you're probably screwed. I love their products. I don't own them. Like I love looking at them and seeing them and reading about them, but Analog is one of the most frustrating companies to do like limited edition drops with products and stuff. It's just so hard to get it, and their site crashes every time, and it's very frustrating as someone who wants a pocket.
I did this twice. I've already vowed to like never try to get the drops on like the sneaker app.
Oh, I still do that, and it
I
sucks.
just can't do it because it sucks. It
Yeah,
makes me
it's
mad every
terrible.
single time. So I've just sworn off the sneakers app. I tried 2 different drops this week. One was the PokemonCenter.com. They put out that Van Gogh Pikachu, and it was
Oh
like spend
yeah,
$30 on Pokemon trading card game stuff, and you'll get the Pikachu Van Gogh thing that everybody lost their minds over a couple weeks ago. You'll get that for free. So I'm like, oh, cool. So I went on their site. First of all, their site crashed completely for like 30 minutes. And then when it was finally back up and running, I went to go check out on some. I was like, okay, well, I'll just buy like $30 worth of that Pokemon 151 that they just put out because I love the original 151. And it had to be trading card game merch. So I was like looking at hats, and then I was like, oh, wait, no, I need to be a TCG thing.
yeah.
Everything like fairly recent was completely sold out. I was gonna buy like this $30 like Zapdos collection that like came with some booster packs for 151 and like a few different Zapdos things. Sold out. Everything just sold out. I'm like, all right, forget it. I just
Yeah.
got so frustrated. I just closed the browser. Then it happened again because one of my followers, longtime followers, messaged me and was like, hey, I saw you really wanted those Spider-Man 2 shoes that Adidas was putting out. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that I do. And he's like, oh, it's on the Adidas app right now. If you download the Adidas app, you can go get it. It's like early access. Then I looked and it was like $225 or something. And I was like,
God,
no, thanks. I would spend like 150 on them, but like not 220.
that's a lot. That's more than Nike's Spider Verse shoes.
That's more than a lot of Air Jordans.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I used to buy a lot of Jordans back in the day. I mean, maybe they've gone up because everything is more expensive to the point that it's just untenable at this point. But I was like, okay, well, I'll get these. And then I decided not to. And I told him, like, hey, thanks. But like, I'm just, I can't spend that much money. And he was like, oh, if you're a T-Mobile customer, there's like a code that like gets you like a huge discount on Adidas like website or their app. And I'm like, oh, I'm not. And he's like, I am. Here's a code. And I was like, what? And then I went to go check out, and they said there were 4 left in my size, and by the time I checked out, there were
Mhm.
0 left in my size. So I I
It's
I
annoying that like when I put it in my cart, take it out of your inventory and give me 5 minutes. It's annoying that they don't do that because then you get all the way to checkout, you put in all your info, you're like, this is in my cart, my info's correct. Certainly this is mine. You hit checkout and it's like, nope, someone else already bought it. And it's like, this was in my cart. It doesn't make
I'm
sense.
getting very fed up by like the scarcity that
Yes.
exists in so many products now. And I know that they're just trying to replicate that rush that you have, that impulse buy, but in the process all they're doing is fueling the scalpers and
Yeah.
screwing up the people that really want this stuff. I mean, Nintendo's as guilty of it as a lot of people are. But like it actually all dates back. Like my earliest example of that was like the NES and SNES when like video game fever was really sweeping the nation. It was like people were losing their minds, lining up outside of toy stores at like 4 in the morning, hoping that they could get an NES before Christmas. I mean, it was replicated again with the Wii when that first
Yeah.
came out. Cause like I remember we got the only reason we got our Wii was we happened to be at a Best Buy when like the stock came in and we were like, are those like able to be bought? And they're like, yeah, we haven't put them out on the shelf yet. And I'm like, can we buy two? Because like we were gonna buy one for us and then one for a family that we knew that really wanted to get one for their kids. And they're like, yeah, but it's like limited one per person. So like my mom and I were like, okay, well we'll each take one. And
Yeah.
like that's the only reason we had a Wii the first year it came out because we got lucky. And like it's just so frustrating when like this has kind of become common with a lot of things. And I just saw that like even like weird things like the Wheaties Spider-Man 2 boxes that they just put out.
Yeah.
They're $45. I didn't
Yeah.
know
I
that
don't
Wheaties boxes were $45. I remember buying like the collectible like my favorite athletes would be on like the Wheaties box. And I'd be like, oh, I want to get that one. And I would go buy it and it would just be like the normal price of a cereal box. Now like
yeah.
everybody's realizing that they can just monetize scarcity and collectability and it's infuriating.
Yeah. It sucks a lot. It's very frustrating and it's scary that we're probably about to enter that next year with the Switch successor. I don't know if the Switch
Oh
was easy for
God.
you, but like I was driving around town for like I probably spent 2-3 hours going to every store I could because the store app or whatever would say 3 in stock. So I rushed there, none. Go to the next store. Um, and yeah, so I'm just not looking forward to that with the Switch 2 or whatever.
I think I got lucky in the sense that one, I worked at Game Informer, so I was in an office at the time of pre-orders going live on websites. So somebody, maybe it was Joe Juba, like saw that the pre-orders were live, and he just like yelled it out into the bullpen, and everybody like went on and pre-ordered their thing. So like we all got it on day one because of that, right?
Yeah,
So we got
that's
lucky
awesome.
in that sense. And like we all actually shipped it to the office because we're like, well, it's going to arrive during the day. I don't want it sitting outside my house all day.
Yeah,
So like I remember like one day, like I guess it was like March 3rd, 2017, all of us got packages at like the same time. And it was just like a giant delivery of Switches that we all ordered individually. But I guess because we ordered them off like Amazon and Best Buy and wherever, they were just like delivered all at once from like the FedEx or UPS guy.
that's awesome. Just drops a pallet of Switches.
It really felt like it. But all right, enough on that. We will end the news segment on this. Mortal Kombat 1. We covered how poorly that Switch port was doing in the early days, but it received its first performance patch that I've watched some videos online. I still have not played the Switch version. They were not handing out codes for that version. I think
Hmm.
rightfully so.
Yeah.
But they people are saying it did some wonders for that Switch version, so that's good. The load times are still kind of long, especially when compared to like the almost instantaneous drop into a match for like the PS5 and Xbox Series X. But it's good news overall for people who are talking about the state of the Switch version at launch. But it's still a pretty rough port when compared to the PS5 and Xbox versions. But pretty sure we knew that was going to be the case when they announced that it was coming to that and not Xbox One and PS4. But the other news that we have out of Mortal Kombat 1 is we have a loose release schedule for the DLC now. So we got our first trailer of Omni-Man from Invincible. He's coming next month, at least in early access. I'm assuming that shortly thereafter, people will be able to play him who don't have the combat pack or didn't like buy the premium edition or whatever it is that gets you the early access. Then this winter will be Quan Chi and Peacemaker. Then Takeda Takahashi will arrive in spring. And then all of that is included in Combat Pack 1. And it also adds 5 new cameo fighters over the course of that same schedule. Do you have a favorite out of this bunch?
Probably it was between Homelander and Omni-Man, just because like it's just very excited to see how they do that. And now after seeing Omni-Man's trailer, probably Omni-Man. The references in that trailer are so awesome, and I for some reason didn't realize how well Omni-Man translates to Mortal Kombat, even though having read some of the comics and seen the show, the first season of it, it is incredibly gory and graphic. It fits in perfectly with Mortal Kombat. So to see them bring a J.K. Simmons voiced Omni-Man to Mortal Kombat and watch him just like crush a skull and slam somebody through the train coming by, it's so sick. I can't wait.
And also, but I neglected to mention that shortly after that Takeda Takahashi release will be Homelander as well.
Yes, probably I bet that'll be time to like season 4 of The Boys or something.
Oh God, I love that show so much. Are you a fan of Invincible?
Yes, yeah, I love it. Yeah,
sell me on that. As somebody who I love, Marvel movies, I love DC movies, I love The Boys. Like, this seems like it should be right up my alley. I just haven't ever gotten around to watching it.
So you haven't watched it?
No.
Oh, I mean, I don't even need to sell you. Just commit to watching the first episode, which I think is like 30 minutes, and you'll be in. Like,
which is on Prime, right?
Yeah, which is unfortunate because Prime is the worst video player of the streaming services.
I mean, Paramount Plus is garbage.
True, that's fair. Yeah. But yeah, literally, if you just watch the first episode, you'll be in. The ending to that first episode is one of the best endings to an episode ever. Similar to The Boys, actually, which I think The Boys' pilot episode is fantastic, and the way that it ends is awesome. But no, the ending of the first episode, Invincible, you'll be sold. And it's like, I think 8 episodes total. Like, you could rip through it in a day or two. It's so good.
And it's only 1 season so far.
Yeah, season 2 comes out soon-ish, next year.
I do love J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons, Steven Yeun as
Steven Yeun's in it.
Invincible. They've got Zazie Beetz is I forget his girlfriend's name, but the voice cast is it's one of those like, super packed voice casts. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Have you watched Gen V at all? That's the Boys spinoff.
No, I haven't. I'm playing catch up on shows, and right now I'm watching Loki and just started The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix. And I can only do like 2 shows at a time, so
I get that.
Yeah, I gotta wait for Gen V.
I need to watch the latest episode of Loki. I'm very much enjoying that show. I'm curious where it's going. But yeah, we're going to end the news segment there because we have gone on so many tangents talking about artificial scarcity, talking about The Boys, Invincible, all things Nintendo, plus others. So we're going to take our first break. And when we get back, I will deliver my review of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. We will be right back. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is out now, and I am finally ready to deliver my verdict on this game. We've talked about it ad nauseum, the reveal, the cover story, first hands-on, all that stuff, all that anticipation leading up to this moment when the game is out now. It is the first mainline 2D Mario game in over a decade, so it has been a long time coming. Wes, what is your hype level for this game as somebody who has not yet played it?
It was like at an 8 or 9, and now it's at like a 10. It's already one of the best scoring games of the year, and the more I see about it, which I'm trying to not see much, but being on Twitter and stuff, you see things. I can't wait. It just looks like such a delight. It'll be a perfect complement to next week's very scary Alan Wake 2 and Spider-Man 2 and all these other games I'm playing. It'll just be that ray of sunshine I need.
Yeah, I was so excited coming into this game, and like all the stuff that they're doing, we've talked about on this show before. like the wonder effects just being so creative, the badge system allowing you to like choose what move set you want, which is really like novel in the Mario franchise because you're so used to having that standardized move set. It all felt so creative, like the level design, the new enemy types. And it was like, okay, this is what Mario should be after 11 years of not having like a mainline console 2D game. And really, I was super hopeful for this game, and I went into it with a lot of optimism and some high expectations. And I am pleased to say, Wes, Mario Wonder met and maybe even exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
It's so good. It is so good, so much fun. It's creative beyond all measures that you could have ever thought it would go. Some of the stuff that like I've had like moments where I would be playing and I would just like laughing at the absurdity or like the weirdness that's happening on screen. The gameplay feels so good. I don't know really what it is I can say about this game because it's like everybody knows how 2D Mario plays and everybody expects it to play amazingly, and it does. It plays so well. It is the tight gameplay that we've come to expect from Mario with the creativity of like a 3D Mario game, right? Like the wackiness that we saw in games like Odyssey, and even to some extent some of the stuff in Galaxy or 3D World or like Sunshine. Some of like just the weirder elements of that feel like they have been translated perfectly, but in new forms to Super Mario Brothers Wonder. And in the process, it also gives you the level design of a game like Super Mario World, which is the highest compliment I can give this game. And it is so good, so consistent, and it's always just a joy to play through this game. And I don't know how we want to approach this conversation. I don't really have like a structure or anything like that, but like as somebody who hasn't played the game, like what are your impressions of this game and like what are you most curious about?
My impressions are, well, I guess like for me, first question, like, is it worth, like, does it feel like an 11-year or however long the gap is? Does it feel like that much time was justified? Like, we waited 10 plus years for the next 2D Mario game, and this is what it is. Was it like worth the wait in every way?
Yes, it's the best Mario game, best 2D Mario game since the Super Nintendo. I feel fairly
Mm.
confident saying that. It beats all the new Super Mario Brothers games as much as I like those games. It adds on so many layers of creativity. The wonder effects are so much fun. The just all of the level design introduces so many gimmicks, and those gimmicks are presented very early on in the level. Like some will have like, all right, well, this enemy is gonna like fly towards you and break through the bricks, and that just tells you like right before you even get to them, they'll fly through and break through the bricks. And it's like, okay, if I get near these birds, they're gonna do that. How am I gonna use that in like the future parts of this level? And that just like expertly designed on ramp tells you everything you need to know about the gimmicks of the level. And they do that so many times, but it never feels like, oh, here's the on ramp that we're doing. It's like, no, like there's always like that light bulb that goes off in your head as you play through the level. Like, oh, they want me to use the gimmick in this way. They want me to use it in this way. Okay, how do I get to that? Oh, I need to use this enemy to break through this stuff. And like they do such an amazing job of like breadcrumbing you and making sure that you understand this is the gimmick that we're employing in this level. And then like it makes you excited to see how it reaches its kind of ultimate realization either later on in the level or in a future level. And I was always like, I've always been a fan of the way Nintendo kind of rotates through its gimmicks, right? It's like,
Yeah.
all right, this one has this like convention, this design convention, this enemy that you have to do or whatever, this level design convention. And then a lot of times you'll never see that again, right? Like you just have one really good level with those conventions employed. This one reuses a few over the course of it. However, I was always more excited when it popped back up because I'm like, oh, what are they going to do with it now? Because you know they're not just going to be like, it's the same thing again. It's like, no,
Yeah.
they justify why they bring them back. And I always was so excited when they did that. And like, they always one-upped themselves, not to use wordplay there, but they always one-upped themselves in creating something new and exciting with each successive level, and I loved that. And they had two missions that they really wanted to do when they came into this. One, and this is from talking to the director Shiro Mori as part of the cover story, they wanted to fill the game with secrets and mysteries. They accomplished that 200% over, right? Like, so many mysteries. Like, you, whenever the wonder seed or wonder flower pops up and you're about to embark on the wonder effect, I always was like, all right, what's it going to be now? What's it going to be now? And I was always like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. Like, so many fun, joyful moments that employ different gameplay conventions sometimes, things you never thought you'd see in a 2D Mario, like the top-down perspective. I'm like, who would have ever thought that a 2D Mario game would be like, all right, now it's a top-down game? Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, that was just wild. And then the other thing that they wanted to do was give players freedom of choice. And they do that in a few ways. One was like the badge system that I talked about, where it's like, you can, as you unlock these badges, you can choose what move set you want your character to be, or what character to have. So if you're playing, you can have like, oh, I want my guy to have a kind of like a glide. So you can do parachute cap. And or you could do like, oh, I want my character to have a kind of the Super Mario Brothers 2 USA crouching high jump. So that's another one you can do. Or you can be like, oh, I'm doing this particular level. It's going to be an underwater level. I want to have them have a dolphin kick so they can go faster underwater. And it makes the water levels so much more tolerable, because I've always been so anti water levels, especially in any 2D platformer.
Yeah.
But like, it's funny because both Mario and Sonic seem to realize that people don't like 2D platforming water levels, but they feel some obligation to have it. So rather than getting rid of the water levels, they put in powers that you can unlock that make them better. And I think both of them were fairly successful. I think Mario may have been more successful in making the water levels better because it was a level long ability, whereas Sonic is just kind of a brief level or brief power that you can employ. But like, they do a great job with adding the badges for the freedom of choice, but they also allow you to skip certain levels if you don't want to play certain levels. Like, the hub world is set up so sometimes there's linear paths from like level to level, but then other times it's just a big open area, and as long as you get enough wonder seeds to unlock the palace, you can skip levels if you want. And I mean, I 100% of the game, so I obviously did not skip any levels or any challenges, but you know, that's there, and they accomplished these missions so well. The only thing I will say they fell short of in terms of like the secrets and mysteries category is that the purple coins, which are one of the main collectibles. So the two primary collectibles are the 10 flower coins, of which there are 3 in each level, and the wonder seeds. That there are 2 of those in every level, sometimes 3 if there is a secret exit. So for the 10 flower coins, you may remember like the coins that you collect in the New Super Mario Brothers series. Sometimes they were really hidden. The flower coins are less hidden. It's more about like challenging you to like explore the level a little bit more, like, because you'll see it in the background and you'll be like, okay, how do I get to the background? And you'll have to like figure out, oh, there's this pipe that I have to like push over to the right, and then that snaps it into place with this other pipe, and then I can jump in there and go down it, and it'll take me to the background, and that's where I can get that coin. It's not so much like hidden, I would say 95% of the time. Usually it is
Yeah.
something you can see, and you just have to either be good enough to get it or be smart enough to figure out how to get to it, right? So that is the one place that I think that they fell short of in terms of like the secrets and mysteries part. But I don't mind that shift, because that was just like changing the convention from what it was in New Super Mario Brothers into this new form of collecting coins as you progress through the level. That I didn't mind so much. But yeah, I think that they accomplished those goals so thoroughly, and yeah, it's just always one of those games that keeps you on your toes as you play through it.
What is the overworld map like? Is it just pretty standard, like I don't know, like in 3D World, or does it have like its own secrets, like in Super Mario World?
Kind of both. Like, secret exits will unlock additional like paths.
Mhm.
And then other times, like, you have to, like, like Super Mario 3D World, you're like, you can run around kind of freely, but you can also find secret areas. Like, there's I don't want to spoil anything, but like there's like a secret area that I didn't find until after I beat the final challenge. I'm like, how am I missing 3 Wonder Seeds? And then like I was like, oh, there's like this thing I have to go and do behind this one area of the level that I would have never thought of unless I was just being like super uh thorough with my exploration. And eventually I did get it and was able to complete the game 100%. But it's just a really fun to explore. And like it's a standard hub world, so it's not too over the top and crazy, but it's definitely one that you're going to want to spend some time in finding additional things to uncover and like do in the overworld.
Does it have any like it sounds like the Wonder Seeds are like the big, crazy wild moments that are fun to experience. Are there any big moments? Is there like what's it called in 3D World? Challenge Road or Challenge something? The last level that's like 10 minutes long and you can't
Champions
die.
Road.
Yes, Champions Road. Is there a jump up superstar moment from Odyssey or gosh, just new Super Mario Bros. Have any moments like that? I don't know. I haven't played those in a minute,
Are
but
you
are there
talking
any
about
like
like something that's going to stick with me, or are you talking about
yeah,
something very challenging?
no, I guess something that sticks with you. Like, is there like a
Oh, man.
standout moment that like when people talk about Wonder from now, they're going to be like, yeah, remember that moment? Because that's like for Odyssey, jump up superstar or the Dark Side of the Moon and all that kind of stuff. Like those are the moments that I highlight.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be honestly different for everybody, because I think people are going to find different things that they love about the different wonder effects.
Mhm.
Because there are so I think that if the wonder effect happened one time, like, and it was just one of the wonder effects, you'd be like, oh, that was the coolest moment of that game. But there are just so many of them just crammed into this game, and literally every main stage has a wonder effect, and they're rarely reused. Like, I think there's the one that was used the most, I think appeared like 3 times, and there are so
Okay,
many
cool.
levels that like it's hard to really single one of them out.
What's the
um
quality bar like with the Wonder Seeds? Are there some that are clear like winners and then others where you're like, ah, this one kind of sucks compared to these, or are they all pretty great?
I don't know that any of them necessarily suck, but like there's like a hierarchy of like, okay, I like that one. That one's like one of my favorites, and there's other ones that I'm like, oh, that was fun, but like whatever, nothing super special. Um, but yeah, I think that they did a really great job designing them. I mean, in talking to them, they told me that like they had probably thousands of ideas, and they stripped that down to anywhere between 1 and 10% of the ideas used. Because like originally he was like, so I was like, what percent of your ideas were actually used versus the ones that you scrapped? And he's like, probably, like, it's hard to put a number on it, but probably like 10%. And he's like, oh, but now that I think of it, it could be as low as 1%. So
That's
it was
wild.
like the quality is pretty high on these, because like they not only had a ton to choose from, so like they had a wider pool to pull from than if it was just like, okay, we came up with 200 and that's how many we put in here. No, they had a lot to choose from, and obviously they chose the best ones, or the ones they thought were the best, and then they iterated on it. Which is, in talking to Mori and Tezuka, that's one of the secret sauces of Nintendo, is they find these amazing ideas and they just iterate on them until they're like, okay, we've really drilled down to the core that makes this idea fun, and that is what we're going to expand upon once they finally iterate onto it and make it so it's like we've reached like really gotten down to the core of the fun part of this idea. Now how do we expand on that core? And they did that over and over and over again with Mario Wonder.
That's awesome. How is our new voice of Mario, Kevin Afghani
I
and
think he does a
Luigi?
great job. I think he does a really good job. Like, I was among the people who they were like when the trailer first came out, they were like, he sounds a little different. And then Charles Martinet announced he was not voicing Mario going forward, and everybody's like, okay, so that's why he sounded different. It's probably a different
Yeah,
voice actor for this. But by the time like I got through like the first couple of levels, I'm like, all right, this is just Mario's voice now. Like, it's not like jarring. I mean, that was kind of the way I felt about Mario, like with Chris Pratt, though, right? Where like when the
yeah,
Mario movie came out, I was like, okay, this is a little weird at first, and then by the middle of the movie, I'm like, yeah, that's just Mario for all
yeah.
intents of like this movie. Like, I don't know, like I'm easy to adapt on a character like Mario, where he has this iconic voice, and obviously the voice actor, what's his name, Kevin Afghani.
Yes, Kevin
Afghani. He obviously is doing kind of a Charles Martinet impression in this game, whereas Chris Pratt went his own route. But like because Mario is not like outside of like his little catchphrases, he's not the most verbose character. So I think it's easier for me to adapt to having a different voice. And like, we've talked about it on the movie with the movie. It would kind of suck if Chris Pratt was just doing the Charles Martinet Mario voice for the entirety of a 90-minute movie. I feel like that would be
Yeah,
like nails on the chalkboard after a minute of that.
yeah,
Like
for sure.
I'm glad that they started the movie with a little bit of a nod to that, but then they just transitioned to like, okay, now it's like a normal person talking.
Yeah, cool. So let's see. Power ups. We've seen the elephant and we've seen some other power ups.
Drill mushroom, and bubble flower are the other
Yeah.
two new ones. I'm
Overall,
not
how do you
gonna.
feel about them?
What was that?
Overall, like how do you feel about these new power ups and just power ups in general and how they're integrated into the gameplay?
I think they're great. The elephant Mario power up or elephant fruit power up is awesome. Like it does everything that they want it to do. It plays so well into the expressive art style. They give you like so many little animations of like elephant Mario trying to fit into things. Like if you are going a place where like normally Mario would be able to fit in there, but like elephant Mario is bigger, so like you don't like he'll like kind of like hunch over and like you'll see like his head like squishing up against and his ears squishing up against like the ceiling. Um and then like he'll go into like a door and like his butt kind of gets stuck and he has to like kind of push through. Same thing for pipes, like he has to kind of like push himself down into pipes. And like even like there's little animations if you're not elephant Mario, like if you're running in and you're just like regular Mario, he'll like his hat will get kind of left behind. He'll like you'll see him go in and his hat will just kind of like do like the floating like cartoon like Looney Tunes thing,
Yeah.
and then like Indiana Jones style he'll reach back, grab it, and pull it into the pipe. Just little animations like that are great. The
Yeah,
sound is amazing.
I saw this as the first Mario game where when you stand on an edge, the characters acknowledge that they're on an edge. Like they don't just stand there with their toes over it.
Yeah. There's a lot of little touches like that. I love that when you get a power up, like there's like almost like a little like paper craft cutout that goes around them. Like there's like an
Oh, that's
outline of
cool.
like when even if you just get like a super mushroom, there's like a little like Mario like gets a big smile on his face, he grows big, and like there's like a comic book style like cutout around him that like really emphasizes that he's powering up, and I love that. Um, as for the power ups themselves, I think they're perfectly implemented. The elephant fruit lets you destroy blocks from the side, which does a lot of really great stuff for like some of the puzzle solving. Some of the levels you need that to like get to certain secret exits or coins or whatever. I mean, there's almost always a workaround. Like you can carry a shell from like a past part of the level or can lure an enemy to destroy it. But like if you're an elephant, you can just be like, all right, well, I'm just going to swing my trunk at it and destroy it. And that's like the easiest way to do it. The bubble flower ended up being a surprise favorite for me. I think
I actually
that
don't even know what this bubble flower does.
so it lets you blow a
What's
bubble. It
Oh,
lets you blow
cool. I
bubbles like
love
if
blowing bubbles.
and it's so satisfying because it's similar to like the two legacy power-ups outside of the superstar, which is always around usually,
Yeah.
usually I can't think of a Mario game that doesn't have a superstar or some sort of invincibility thing. I guess Mario 64 didn't really did that really have a superstar, because it was the
No.
star was like the collectible. It wasn't
Oh,
really like a power-up in that case.
true.
um it like they had the caps in that one that let you do certain things, but um for the bubble flower, it allows you to just shoot bubbles out, and the bubbles will like if they cross past an enemy, the enemy gets stuck in the bubble, and then they just disappear and turn in. I think they usually turn into a coin, but so
Oh,
that it's
cool.
really powerful in like defeating enemies, just throwing the bubbles out, and it's satisfying to see them get stuck in the bubble and then like
Float away.
die
Yeah.
and pass away. And it's fun to use in that way, but you can also use it for platforming. So you can
Oh,
throw a bubble out and then jump off the bubble to bounce up. So
that's
that's
cool.
helpful in a lot of cases, but like I don't know, it's more satisfying to me to throw a bubble at an enemy and have them get stuck in the bubble than it is like using the fire flower to hit them. I mean, I love the fire flower and the super mushroom being the other legacy power up that got brought forward. The drill mushroom is fun for exploration, and it's cool to like because with the drill mushroom you can burrow through things. So like you can destroy blocks from above or below, and enemies, if like enemy drops from like the ceiling or comes at you from above, you're protected because your head is a drill. So like they'll end up like not being able to hurt you. The key thing for that is like being able to burrow into the ground and like go under certain things. So like there's secrets that you can get by doing that. It's less of a utility thing and more of like a specialized power up, I felt.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, I would say the hierarchy for me was Bubble Flower 1, Elephant Fruit 2, Drill Mushroom 3 in terms of like the new power ups. Uh, in terms of like level design, they do some really cool stuff. Like there's obviously like some of the stuff with that like we've come to expect from Mario games. Like there's hidden blocks and like boss battles and stuff. Which, by the way, we'll talk about the boss battles. That's one of my sole criticisms that I have of this game are the boss battles. But for the level design itself, like they have so many new elements that I love. Like the zip tracks are one of my favorite parts of the game. They don't show up super often, but when they do, I'm like, oh, okay, this is so much fun. Like they're the ones that are basically like you're grinding on if you're on the top, or you're basically like zip lining if you're on the if you're on the bottom of them. And there are some really fun sequences with that, not the least of which is on the most difficult challenge in the entire game. There's a zip track sequence that I could probably do with my eyes closed now, because it's the first part of after the first checkpoint that I died on. I am so happy I went into that final challenge with 100 lives, because I churned through lives in that final challenge. I guess we'll talk about this. I don't want to give away any spoilers. If you do want to know what you get for completing the final challenge, go to GameInformer.com or Game Informer on YouTube, because I posted a video of your reward for getting that. So you can check that out.
Is this challenge the one that I forget his name couldn't beat in your cover
I would
story?
have to guess so. He didn't tell me. Takashi Tezuka, who's been working on Mario since the very first game, he told me that there was a couple of things in the game that he was not able to complete. And I would not be surprised at all if this is one of them. And the last thing that you can do in the game, it's probably like, if you were able to do it in one life, for example, I would bet that it takes you like 3.5 to 5 minutes, somewhere in that vicinity. So it's a long challenge. There are some checkpoints in there, so it's not like a do it all in one shot thing. I'm not going to tell you even what like the gimmick is with it, but you again, if you want to see my guide, you can go to GameInformer.com. But you have to do it all, and it's so hard. It took me probably an hour and a half to do it the first time, and just it tested my mettle. I was like throwing my controller into the couch. I was conscious about that. I was throwing it into like a pillow.
TV.
I was saying naughty words, and I was very, very angry at this game for that period. But like, and here's the thing. Here's my war story for this game. I finally got through it. I was hour and a half of gameplay. Finally got it. And I was like, oh my God, I did it. I don't have to play this level ever again. And I didn't get the flagpole.
Oh, no.
So I was like, well, I'm 100%ing this game. I have to do it again. So once more into the breach I went. And this time it only took me 30 minutes. But still, like...
Oof, that's brutal.
There are a couple sequences in it that the only way I could get past them is a measure of luck. Like even playing it again yesterday, because I was like, well, let me try to like capture this and like share it on the YouTube. I was like, I don't have time for this. I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I don't have the ability right now, because like that was the first thing I tried to do, was like just jump right into there after not playing for a day. You need to be fully warmed up for this challenge. I'm not going to say it's as hard as Champions Road on Super Mario 3D World, but it's I would say top 5 most difficult Mario levels.
Champions Road is especially hard only because like the no checkpoints thing too. If you have checkpoints, then I feel like Champions Road is pretty doable.
If this had no checkpoints, I would say it's up there with Champions Road.
Wow. Okay. Dang. I'm excited.
And I think I don't know, man. It's thinking of like my favorite Mario games of all time, Super Mario World is easily number one. But then after that, like it oscillates back and forth between 2D and 3D. It's probably like Mario 64 is in the mix for top five. Mario Odyssey is easily my favorite 3D Mario game, maybe my
Yeah.
second favorite. Mario 3 is in there. So like I love the 2D side and the 3D side a lot. I'm much better at playing 2D Mario than I am at playing 3D Mario. Like if you told me like, all right, you have to beat a really challenging 2D level or you have to beat a really challenging 3D level before you eat lunch today, I would tell you, all right, bring on the 2D level because I'm
Yeah.
just better at 2D platforming than I am 3D platforming. I'm not saying I'm bad at 3D platforming, but I'm more confident in my skills in 2D platforming. And even then, I struggled with this final challenge.
Dang, that's exciting. Tell
So
me about these boss
the
battles.
boss battles are overall fine. They use the wonder effects, so like there's some cool different stuff at play. I want to fall short of like giving away too much about them. Every boss battle is distinct in the sense that it uses different wonder effects,
Okay.
but it's always against the same character,
Hmm.
at least up until the final battle. All
Yeah.
the vast majority of the boss battles, we'll just go there, are against the same character with essentially the same move set. The only thing that you have that differentiates them are the wonder effects, which are cool, but it just didn't feel like it was up to the level of creativity that the rest of the game had set. And that was the one criticism I had of the main game, right? The levels are incredible. There's these levels called Search Party where it just dumps you into an open area, like an open course, non-linear course. You're going through it and you just have to find 5 tokens. And
Hmm.
there's 4 of them and each one of them has a different thing going on. It's always like a very obscure like, all right, these were the ones that I struggled with the most aside from the final challenge was like I got stuck on one of them for like a good 5 minutes, like just like, all right, where is that last token?
Yeah.
And that's what drove me to write a guide for it on GameInformer.com because I'm like, other people are going to struggle with this. I don't ever want to put open spoilers out there, so everything is behind like a warning of spoilers. So don't
Yeah.
get mad at me if you see somebody screen capping my thing. I clearly mark in all of my stuff, warning, spoilers contained in here. And that's why I'm kind of being vague in my talk about the game in this. But like I do want to give you my full verdict here since the game is out by the time you hear this recording. So the search party is fun. There's a KO arena that is in a lot of the worlds. And basically what that is, it lets you in the very beginning choose 2 power-ups to bring with you. One of them you're going to have right then and there. The other one is going to be in your inventory. Every player has an inventory that they can keep, kind of like Super Mario World. And then you go out and it's a timed challenge of how fast can you get through a multi-stage course where your job is just to defeat every enemy in the area.
It's kind of like those mystery rooms in 3D World.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, you're gonna have 3 or 4 levels, and you gotta beat all the enemies in there. So you gotta be really strategic about what power-ups you choose. So I would often choose the elephant flower as my first one because then I would get the bubble or the elephant fruit, and then the bubble flower would transfer the elephant fruit to my inventory, and then I would go in with the
Yeah.
bubble flower because I felt like I was more precise with that, and that can go through walls, and that can like hit enemies that are above you or kind of farther away from you. The fire flower was always a little bit imprecise for me, and the drill mushroom just very rarely was like the right choice for these KO arenas.
Yeah.
But I always loved those, and then like based on how fast you got through them, you would get the purple flower coins. So like you have to beat them in like a really fast pace in order
Get
to
all
get
3.
the final one. Yeah, because it's like one of them's like, okay, if you beat it in 200 seconds, which is pretty easy, you'll get the first one. If you beat it in 150 seconds, you'll get it the second one. Then you beat it at 90 seconds. That's when you get the third one. And sometimes that last one was pretty tough.
Yeah.
But those were always some of my favorite levels. There are badge challenge levels where like it just gives you one of the badges and it's like, all right, here, just go through a level tailor-made for this badge. And those are fun. Sometimes they get pretty challenging near the end. Like as you get to like the later badge challenges, those end up being some of the more difficult, just single focused levels. And then there are others that are just like standard levels, right? You're going through it and you find 3 coins as you go through, you fight enemies, and then there's a wonder seed or wonder flower that opens up the wonder effect, and you're trying to get the wonder seed. Those are kind of the levels that you can come to expect in this game. And yeah, it's just so much fun. The other criticism I will give this game is the multiplayer options. So having co-op is fun, right? I've played 2-player co-op, I've played 3-player co-op, I've played 4-player co-op in Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Always fun. It's not the chaos that it was in New Super Mario Brothers. It is more measured, and that's because you don't interact with each other unless Yoshi is one of the characters. If you jump on Yoshi, you can ride around on Yoshi. He can help you. You can do the Yoshi jumps. So like if you need to get higher, you can do that. But outside of that, you don't interact with each other. And I like that because like it would get almost to the point of like detrimental if you were playing New Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario 3D World. It would be detrimental if you had a party of 4 going through these levels because you'd be bouncing off each other. You'd be accidentally picking each other up and throwing each other in lava pits. I'm glad that is gone in Super Mario Brothers Wonder. However, that's only available in local. You cannot take that online, which is a huge bummer because this would be so much fun. And they cracked the code. They cracked the online multiplayer code when they did the Switch version of Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario 3D World. That was an option to play online multiplayer. So why was that? I feel like a 2D game would be easier to crack the case or crack the code for that when it comes to online multiplayer than it would be for a 3D game. So I'm just confused why it's not an option. There are online multiplayer options. So there's an asynchronous multiplayer option where you can activate online and you continue playing single player, but you will see the ghosts of other characters in your level or other players in your level. And it's like sometimes they are in like they're in the level right now and they can actually die. And if they swim as a ghost over to you within 5 seconds of dying, you can rescue them and they'll respawn in their game. But like if they defeat an enemy, it doesn't affect your instance. If they like unlock something, it doesn't affect your instance. And it's like, okay, that's fine. You can also set up lobbies with friends, up to 12 people, to go around and do levels together. So you see their ghosts and you know who they are. But even if you're just playing by yourself, you can see like the player's like name. It's funny. I was playing and I saw my friend and I was like, oh, is that like just her ghost? Or is she actually in this level right now? And I got a message from her on Instagram. It's like, oh my God, we were just in the same level together. So those moments are fun. But I wish that there was a way to play like the co-op in there. Because you can also set up races. So like you can go into the lobby, the same lobby, and you can at the start when you have like a lobby of players, there's a little like checkered block at the start of every level. And what you can do is you can hit that block when you first spawn into the level, and anybody else in your lobby that hits that block, up to 4 people, can join in a race through the course.
That's cool.
And speaking of races, there is one more level type that I forgot to mention, and that is the Wiggler race. And there's only a few of these, but you can go through it, and it's basically just like a race. You're racing a Wiggler through the level, and your goal is just to get there before the end, before he does. So it's kind of fun to go like the speed run route there, and that's also the thing with the multiplayer, right? You can do the speed run racing through there, and that's fun. But the thing about Super Mario Brothers Wonder, and I point this out in my review, my favorite moments were when I was taking my time and exploring and poking around and finding the little secrets and enjoying the wonder effects, because it's almost always faster to skip the wonder effect than it is to go through the wonder effect. So by doing the racing, it's fun to go through a course as fast as possible and be like, oh, wow, that was really fun. Like we're jumping off enemies. We're just trying to get to the end as fast as possible. You are skipping some of the best parts of the level in doing that. So while a speed run is not inherently a bad thing, in fact, I love getting through levels as fast as possible. In this game in particular, it feels like, oh, there's the Wonder Flower. I should just keep going because I want to get to the flagpole before my opponents.
Yeah.
So it's a bummer that that's the only like direct multiplayer option that you can do online. Um,
Is it distracting having all the ghosts on? Like from what I've seen, like I don't think I will be doing that at least
sometimes,
often.
but at other times, it's like I was actually stuck on like one of those search party courses, and you could see that, and like this might be a positive or negative depending on your viewpoint. It could show you like, oh, there's somebody standing right there, but there's no block there. Oh, there must be an invisible block. So you jump up and you're like, oh, there was an
Mm,
invisible block there. So there's some spoilers that get mentioned into there because of like you're trying to figure out this level. And like if you have the ghosts running around, you'll see like, oh, they're going up there, and like there must be like a hidden thing up there. And so that might be a good thing if you're like, oh, I don't want to be stuck on a level for too long, or it might be a bad thing if you're like, I want to figure everything out for myself and like not have anybody tell me how to do this. So it's a double-edged sword. And yes, in like some of those like later things where like I'm like having a hard time like getting through a level, it can be a little bit distracting to be like, all right, I'm really trying to focus on getting through this level, and then you see like a Luigi like using his grapple vine and like basically Spider-Manning through the level, and you're like, it like would break my concentration sometimes. So yeah, I could see how it could be distracting, but overall I think it was a positive. I just, my big thing is I wish standard co-op. I wish like when you fire up Super Mario Brothers Wonder for the first time, you could message me on our Slack or Discord and be like, "Hey, do you want to play a couple levels of Mario Wonder?" And I could say, "Yeah, let's do it." And it's just seamless, like a modern video game should be.
yeah.
So really, I mean, those are my two criticisms of the game. Outside of that, it is phenomenal. Like the outside of the boss battles, which are again are fine, and the online multiplayer, which just is fine. It's just lacking and doesn't play to the strengths of the title. That Super Mario Brothers Wonder is a fantastic game. It's one of the best 2D Mario games probably ever. I mean, I don't want to get too caught up in recency bias, but if it's the best one since Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario World and Yoshi's Island, if you want to consider that, which we're going to get into after this next break, um, I mean, it's got to be top 3, top 4 2D Mario games of all time.
Dang.
It's really a fantastic game, and if you've been waiting for like a 2D Mario game to really wow you, if you thought like the new Super Mario Brothers games were a little bit too vanilla after a while, this is the one you've been waiting for.
Do you want a sequel to this next, or do you want them to try to do another new 2D game like Wonder is?
If they have more ideas that are as good as the one that they put into this, like I'm all for Super Mario Brothers Wonder 2. Like think about it like Tears of the Kingdom, right? Everybody played Breath of the Wild, and they're like, "Oh, that was great. That was awesome. And one of the best games of all time." And
Yeah.
then they're like, "Okay, we're going to go back to that Hyrule with Tears of the Kingdom." And that was born out of the fact that they had so many ideas that they couldn't fit it all into Breath of the Wild, and they couldn't figure out some of the tech, and they thought of stuff too late, right? And then that's what caused Tears of the Kingdom, which I think is the best game of the year. I mean, there's plenty of people that think other games are better, but like I think it's universally agreed upon that Tears of the Kingdom is a fantastic game,
Yeah.
regardless of if you think it's better or worse than Breath of the Wild. But when you get to like Tears of the Kingdom, you see that Eiji Aonuma and Hidemaru Fujibayashi were like, we're not even going to put DLC out for this one because we did everything that we want to do with this style of game. We're going to move on to something different with the next game. And if that's the case with this, they're like, oh yeah, we did everything we wanted to do with Super Mario Brothers Wonder. I don't need DLC. I don't need another Super Mario Brothers Wonder. I just want another game, like, because Nintendo, they're so good at figuring out what to do next.
Yeah.
They've not let me down yet, right? There's so many great games in Nintendo's catalog. Takashi Tezuka, looking at his resume, he has just put out banger after banger. It's criminal that he does not get as much love from like, I think from the hardcore fans he does, but from like the modern, like the casual gamer does not know Takashi Tezuka the way they know Shigeru Miyamoto is a crime.
I don't think
He
I knew his name before our cover story and talking to
what?
you about it, to be honest. I
He's
know.
the
Like I only knew Miyamoto as a Mario
like he was
person.
the like I think assistant director of the original Super Mario Brothers. I think he was the assistant director of the original Legend of Zelda, and then he was the director of Link's Awakening, director of A Link to the Past, director of Super Mario World and Yoshi's Island, and I believe he was producer on Ocarina of Time before being like full-time producer on, like, he's kind of like the Eiji Aonuma of the Mario series now. Like the way Eiji
Yeah.
Aonuma is kind of like just oversees the Zelda series, Takashi Tezuka kind of fills that role for the Mario series. So like the fact that he's not as celebrated is wild to me because of just his credits are probably unrivaled. Like it's like the only person who could possibly rival his credits
Yeah.
is Shigeru Miyamoto. So big ups to Takashi Tezuka, another
Shout
certified
out.
banger under his belt with Super Mario Brothers Wonder. But yeah, you feeling good about this one?
Yeah, I'm excited. I was trying to see if it's gonna be out. I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow, basically. Which when this is live, I will hopefully be playing Super Mario Wonder. But I want to play it now, and I'm upset that I can't.
And I'm hopeful. I mean, honestly, the only DLC that I would want for this game, unless they have some amazing ideas that just got stuck on the cutting room floor, would be to expand the online multiplayer.
Yeah,
Like give us the ability to play it.
I feel like they could do that. That's a thing, right?
I hope so.
Local co-op and online co-op after the fact. I feel like they've done something like that before.
I would love it because like I just don't have a lot of people that come over to play video games. Like if I was like in a stage in my life where I was inviting people over to play video games all the time, maybe I wouldn't mind so much. Or if I had like somebody that I lived with that's a gamer, like maybe I would not mind so much. But yeah, it's just not how I live these days.
Just make it happen. You know, us adults, we go out for like drinks and food. Just instead of drinks and food, like, hey, you want to come play some Super Mario Bros. Wonder tonight?
Bring it to that rooftop party that we've now doesn't exist anymore. Did you see they took down that trailer?
It's gone forever. Yeah,
the famous Switch reveal trailer that we didn't talk about this in the news segment, but yeah, the famous Switch reveal trailer that popularized the rooftop party meme is gone. Rest in peace, Switch reveal trailer.
Switch is gone. Everyone's Switch is gone now too. Go try to find yours. It's gone.
I wonder if it was a music licensing issue because I know they used a licensed song from a band. So I wonder if they were like, okay, we have like a 6-year window or whatever we can have this trailer exist or whatever. But
if that is it, then that's like really annoying because that's like an important part of video game history, and it's kind of actually not kind of. It's really really lame if it stays gone forever. Like that's a huge deal.
Music licensing with record labels, the biggest pain that could possibly exist, and it's like the most outdated, antiquated thing imaginable. Like I'm not going to name names, but we were going to have a pretty famous band come in and play some games with us, and we were going to use one of their songs because it was a music game that they were going to play with us, and we were going to have them play one of the music games that had their song featured in it with us. And the record label intervened, saying that we could only play 1 minute of the song, and it could only be up for 2 weeks. And we're like, well, that's
so
no.
stupid.
So we canceled, which sucks because So there are plenty of complications that can be involved with music licensing. But yeah, even the theme song of this podcast that you heard when this show started has some complications when you put it on YouTube.
Jeez.
And that was a song that I got off like a license-free thing. So yeah, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Go check out my review, GameInformer.com. I gave it a 9.25 out of 10. Everything about this game rules. It's just a couple of things that I wish were a little bit better that we talked about there, but they don't stop me from having just one of the best times that I've had with video games in 2023. So, Wes, we're going to take our final break of this episode. And when we come back, we're going to do a short segment that we introduced about a year ago and then never used again. We will be right back. We are back, and instead of doing definitive ranking, we are going to do a segment that I thought was going to be a lot more prominent than it ended up being. It's called Everybody Votes. And basically the premise, if you don't remember the first time we did it, is I put out a question on Twitter, and we see how the community comes down on it. We also kind of weigh in on our own opinions. It's not the longest segment, but it can be fun. So the question this time around, Wes, do you consider Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, a mainline Mario game or not? So what do you think? Where do
Mm,
you fall on this question?
I initially fell on no because I've always kind of seen it as a spin-off, but like I mean it is mainline because Nintendo says it is, and it is still doing the same thing. You're like an I guess it depends on like what the goal of a Mario game is. Is it about platforming with Mario, or is it about starting at one end of a level and getting to the end of the level and platforming to do that? Um, because yeah, you don't play as Mario really. He's there, baby Mario is, but you're not controlling him and you're not doing typical platforming, and it feels very different. But the way that you control Yoshi and the little tricks up Nintendo's sleeve still feel very at home in the Mario franchise. So I think ultimately I'm fine with it being a mainline game. But if someone says it's not something that I'm gonna like go to bat for.
That's kind of how I feel about it as well. But there's some things going for it and against it, right?
Yeah.
So here's the biggest thing that Yoshi's Island has going for it, and that is we asked Takashi Tezuka, one of the guys in charge of creating not only the Mario series alongside Shigeru Miyamoto. I mean, Miyamoto is the creator of Mario. However, we asked, actually, this is actually Miyamoto that we asked. I'm misreading it, apparently. I thought that, so we asked both of them. Shigeru Miyamoto, we asked in 2012, and he said, when we first made Yoshi's Island, we considered it part of the Mario series. After that, the Yoshi series continued on its own. As developers, do we consider it to be part of the core Mario series? The answer is yes. Okay,
Okay.
so then Takashi Tezuka at E3 2015, we asked him the same question, and he said, I consider it part of the Mario series.
Well, can't argue with those two names.
Yeah, so apparently we followed up if the Super Mario World 2 prefix was fully embraced by the team. And here's what Takashi Tezuka said. He said, by the way, the director of Yoshi's Island, he said, that was so long ago that I don't fully remember. I don't think I made that decision alone. I don't think I could have. When the game debuted, I wanted people to understand that Yoshi was part of the Mario world and that be conveyed whether through title or gameplay. To me, it's part of the Mario series, but today's Yoshi's games, they've changed from those origins. So I think it's okay to think of Yoshi living in his own universe. You can think of it separately from Mario's world.
Oh,
So those are the
interesting.
things going for Yoshi's Island being a part of the series. I throw this out on Twitter because we're not calling it that other name. Uh, the strongest argument came from one of my followers, Julio Mendoza. He shared that I guess a binder or a notebook that he bought had a Mario timeline, a Super Mario timeline, and it completely skips right over Yoshi's Island. It goes from his first appearance in Donkey Kong to, through all the NES games to 1991 Super Mario World, and then goes right to 1996 Super Mario 64.
Hmm. That's an
So
official timeline that like Nintendo shared?
it is. It says 2018 Nintendo. The question
Wow.
is, let me look at this a little bit closer here because I don't think I think that this is skipping a couple of games. It's, no, it does have a lot of games. It has a lot of the games. I'm looking at this is my first time really zooming in on this. But yeah, I mean there's some good points made on both sides here.
I don't think Nintendo's going to argue with Miyamoto.
I don't think
I think
so
if
either.
Miyamoto says it, then that is, and he must have not seen that timeline before it went out.
So our good pal Shinobi602 on Twitter, he makes a compelling argument as well, which is it's literally in the name.
Yeah, I mean that exactly. Yeah, it's kind of Nintendo says it is, so it is.
But then we have Joshua Goldie chiming in. No, because in Japan it's just Yoshi's Island. It's also the primary game of the Yoshi series, and it doesn't really play anything like 2D Mario games outside of it just being a platformer. So there's some arguments on both
I
sides
don't think
here.
for me, like, games don't have to play the same to be in the same series. Because I mean, they need to. Actually, I don't know. Now I don't know.
We have Mustard96 chiming in with no for a few reasons. Mario himself is not a main playable character. This is the main deciding factor. And two, while yes, it is still a platformer, the main mechanic is very different from other Mario games and has only been used in Yoshi's games, not Mario. Same with Wario Land.
Fair.
But then we have, let's see. We have Kalkins chiming in. I don't consider it a, quote, mainline game, but I view it in the same way I do the Super Mario Land series. Those games aren't mainline, but they're still Mario games. And then ends with, I don't know.
Those do people not? That's not mainline Mario. Those are mainline to me. I mean, I know that they're like for the Game Boy, but I think Super Mario Land 2 is like one of the best in 2D Mario.
And then here's a very a very wishy-washy answer. It's canon to Mario, but if you were listing Mario games, I wouldn't add it unless you include Wario Land. Okay. And then somebody else said if Mario World 2 isn't mainline, then neither is Galaxy 2 or Mario Brothers 2. There's just, it's all over the place here. We have arguments coming in left and right. Let's check out how the voting goes. Let me refresh the page so we have the most up-to-date results. We're over 1,000 votes at time of recording right now, and 52.4% says yes, they consider it part of the mainline Mario series. That's where I kind of land as well. I was like kind of on the edge there, but then it just became like, I think Miyamoto and Tezuka pushing me over the edge by saying that they consider it part of the Mario series. And I don't think that it's necessarily got to be like, oh, well, they said it, so that's that. I think it's just like that was kind of like the deciding factor for me. It was the straw that broke the camel's back for me.
Yeah.
But are you on that same line?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, for me, like if Miyamoto says it is, then I'm not. Like, are any of these people saying no going to tell that to him? And then are they going to win an argument against Miyamoto about it? I don't think so. So like, if Miyamoto's like, Wesley, it is, I'm like, all right, yes, sir.
Oh man, and then we have somebody responded to that if Mario World 2 isn't mainline, then neither is Galaxy 2 or Mario Brothers 2. Somebody responded with not quite the same because you play as Mario in those, and then they responded Metal Gear Solid 2 is not a mainline Metal Gear game.
That's awesome.
Oh god, it's all going downhill in my mentions. Ever since I made that joke about putting Spider-Man 2 on Game Pass, I've had just people in my mentions. I muted that phrase and then muted that conversation, then immediately posted this poll, and now I have more arguments happening in my mentions. I might just need to take a break from social media. But Wes, that's the episode of All Things Nintendo. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to maybe come back and tell my thoughts on Super Mario Bros. Wonder here one day.
Yeah, we'll have to do that because I'm sure you'll be on the show sometime in the next couple of weeks here. Yeah. And we like to get updates when more people are able to play these games. We were doing that with Tears of the Kingdom for a while. Like if I had somebody on for the first time after that game came out, get their brief thoughts at the top of the show. Same thing for the Mario movie. Anytime there's like one of these big cultural phenomenons, that is when I like to do it. So yeah, we will definitely talk about your opinions on Super Mario Brothers Wonder next time you're on the show. So get some time in with that game. But thank you so much to everyone for listening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, throw All Things Nintendo a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to get any questions, comments, or feedback in, you can do so. All Things Nintendo at GameInformer.com. You can also hit me up on all social media platforms. Brian P. Shea. You can join the Game Informer Community Discord, which is a perk for subscribing to our Twitch channel, even just for 1 month. Wes, tell everybody where they can find you on the internet.
You can follow me on Twitter at LeBlanc Wes. You can find me on like Instagram and Blue Sky and all those other things. Basically just my name, Wesley LeBlanc. And you can read my work on GameInformer.com, of course, and hear my voice sometimes on shows like this and on Game Informer's YouTube channel.
Also, be sure to check out GameInformer.com today for all of your Super Mario Brothers Wonder needs. Also, your Spider-Man 2 needs. We have all kinds of articles up. I posted guides. I posted a video of like talking about or showing what you get for the final rewards. If you don't mind spoilers, go check that stuff out. You can also read my full review at GameInformer.com. But that is our show for this week. Thank you all again so much for listening. Take care. We will see you next time.